Welcome to Kemet'Het. The year is 246 PA, or post adjudication. Beneath a scorched sun, across golden wastes and blackened glass, lies the kingdom of Kemet'Het, an empire born not of gods, but of power, arcane power, a land where magic reigns supreme. Once it was a place of balance, of artisans, warriors, and scholars. But that was before the Arcane Uprising, before the blood price was paid and the world was remade in flame and shadow, an event known as the Adjudication. Now, Kemet'Het is ruled by the Eternal Order, an oligarchy of archmages who carved their authority into stone. In the north, where twisted trees writhe beneath dying skies, lies the forest of the Valewood, home to the buried dead and the whispers of old rebellions. More north still, we find the snow-covered plains and frozen forests of the Forgotten Lands, where the rumored free folk are said to call home. To the northwest, the secluded and reclusive Isle of Thaltorin, a place of wild hearts, natural magic, and beauty, watched over carefully by the druidic tribes that have distanced themselves from Kemet'Het over these many years. On the west side of the continent, the drowned marshes fester, choked with poisonous fog and the ruined remnants of fallen cities, now reclaimed by nature and creatures made monstrous by stray magic. It is the natural barrier between the inland portion of the continent and the Umbral Sea. The wastes of Zul-Ra dominate the center, a vast desert cracked and shimmering, home to ancient ruins buried beneath the sand, and to the rebel spirits who dare still dream. In the east rise the Kutan Ranges, once home to mighty clans of warriors, all but lost and forgotten to the ages. The boundaries here, between the ranges, are closely guarded and sealed to all but a select few to pass. A great mining operations scar the mountains, where cracked and broken hands pry magical minerals from the earth, minerals that fuel the ambition and power of those above. But above all else, at the kingdom's blackened heart, rises a city, like no other, Iphren-Ka, the obsidian spires, the jewel of the Magocrocy, a monument to control. Carved atop the bones of the old world's greatest city, Iphren-Ka scrapes the sky with towers of glistening black stone, each spire pulsing with veins of arcane energy that thrum like the heartbeat of a dying god. The very air is thick with latent power and the scent of submission. At the city's core broods the Black Pyramid, a citadel of the Eternal Order and the lair of the Archmage Sovereign. Within, unspeakable experiments twist reality. Some say the pyramid itself thinks and hungers. High above in the sky, the obsidian spires float, fortresses of the elite. Bridged by strands of energy, these bastions are home to the spell-forged, the indoctrinated, and the cruel. None without magic may enter, and none without magic may leave. But below, far below, in the smog-choked shadow of power, lies the lower wards, a maze of soot-stained alleys, crumbling tenements, and forgotten lives. It is here the powerless are kept, the workers, the smiths, the miners, the lesser blood, the fallen. Hope is a rare thing here, dangerous, and yet, among the ash, embers still stir. The ashen markets bustle with whispered secrets and contraband, arcane minerals stolen from the forges, forbidden blades passed hand to hand beneath guard patrols, and in the house of silent chains, the Magocrocy enforcers break the will of all who resist. But rebellion cannot be crushed forever, not truly. Beneath the city's surface, old tunnels are opening, new alliances are forming, and tonight, the air tastes different, heavy. And it is here, in the belly of the beast, that your story begins. You are not nobles, not mages, not monsters. You are the ones they would forget, the ones they cast down. But from the shadows of the lower wards comes fire. And now you will show me, you will show the world who you are. It is here, in a small and rundown claystone shack, smashed between many others of a similar design, that we begin. The shack is gray and tan in color. It is cracked and splintered on its walls, and the windows are merely open holes in the front and sides of the building. The morning air and smells waft into the openings, and the smell and taste of the soot and smog drift throughout the building. The inside is scarcely decorated with broken furniture that has been repaired as best it can be, coaxing a little more life from it. A large bench sits in the center of the room, two of its legs patched and paired with extra pieces of wood that are lashed to it. It has no cushion, and it looks very uncomfortable to sit on. In the back corner of the room, furthest from the door, two single beds separated by a hanging tapestry that may have once carried a beautiful depiction, now stained and worn from the very air. Across the room, in the area that resembles a cooking station, a wood fire oven heats with the addition of more smoke and ash to the room. Not able to be properly ventilated, for one reason or another, some of the smoke escapes through the chimney, while some trails back into the room. Atop the stove, we see a small iron pan with 6 large eggs cooking in it. They sizzle and pop from the heat, and while they are being prepared in a methodical way, you seem to know that they will only taste of the smoke that surrounds them. Standing over the pan, we can see a figure, large and broad, towering within this small slum hovel. Cruiser, if you would care to introduce Brawley.
You envision in this kind of, I guess, scene, a 8-foot Goliath, gray skin, blue eyes, dark black hair, younger for a barbarian, for a Goliath, early 20s, weighing 475 pounds, just massive. And he has burn marks on his skin, cracked hands from all the callus from working the forge. And he just a massive creature. Oh, these eggs are gonna taste so amazing. You know what? I should bring some to, what was that merchant's name? He sits right next to my booth. Colin, Callan Forsyth, I believe his name is. Tiny little cat he is. I'll bring some for him. I'll cook some up. I'm always an amazing chef.
As you add some more eggs to the pan to cook up for a fellow merchant, Callan, that's next to you at the stalls, you can't help but feel that the days here are long. And the quality of life is much worse than you remembered. When you were children, this place still had an air of mystery and mystique about it. Now, it's much more miserable in comparison. The feeling of snow underfoot, the wide open areas of the plains, and the freedom of choices are all but distant memories. Nevertheless, you returned for a reason. And as you begin to clean up from the morning's meal and make your way down to the forges that you operate, the smells of coal and oils, the clang of steel on iron, and the fulfillment in watching these creations take shape, that is what awaits you. The single reprieve from the day-to-day disregard that is directed to the lower wards. You step out into the morning sun, already beginning to bake the ground into dry and cracked stone. And the heat from above is only outperformed by the heat that bounces back up from the ground. Nothing to you. The fires of the forges are even hotter. And you begin making your way towards your forge. The lower wards breathe beneath the spires like a festering wound. The scent of coal smoke and alchemical runoff lingers in the air, like a second skin, and children run barefoot through the broken streets. Street vendors shout half-heartedly beneath veiled glances, and mage guard patrols pass by, faces hidden behind bronze masks, hands ever near their staves. As you move through the street passing by the Ashen Markets, a Mage Guard patrol of 6 are standing outside one of the stalls, the stall that you intended to visit. 2 of them are currently harassing the vendor and pressuring him, an older tabaxi that runs a trinket stand next to your forge. The other 4 guards stand blocking anyone from approaching. One of the guards says to the merchant, "It's real simple. You pay us the gold, and we keep anyone else from taking it from you." And the second one sort of laughs to himself and out loud, and he says, "Yeah, they can't take it if we have it, right?" The vendor, trying to pick himself up off the table where he was just recently pushed onto, begins rifling through his coin bag. He pulls out 5 gold pieces and hands it to the first guard. And the guard, without hesitation, reaches out, takes the pieces, and then grabs the bag from his hand and begins to shake it. The sound that you hear coming from it leads you to believe that there are maybe 4 or 5 pieces left inside. The guard looks to the merchant, and the smile fades from his face. He opens the bag and takes out 3 more pieces and then tosses the bag back at the merchant's face. The 2 step out and rejoin the other 4, and the 6 guards turn and begin walking away, but not before kicking the leg out from under the corner of the table, causing it to collapse to the floor and his many trinkets to tumble forth into the sand. This is life in the lower ward, the slums.
As the whole interaction happens, Raleigh sits there, biting his lip, knowing that he mustn't do what he wants to do. And, like, hand on, like, a post, you see his hand just grabbing the post as hard as he can and imprinting on the hard cedar wood. But then once the guards leave, he'll walk up to Callan and go, "Well, Cal, looks like you had a rough time."
That's not any more rough than any other day. They need to learn some new intimidation tactics.
Well, I got a little gift for you. And as I'm handing him the eggs, I have 6 gold coins hidden under the plate for him. So I'll take 6 gold pieces out of my inventory.
He takes the plate, feeling the small pouch underneath. A smile sort of curls across his face, and he looks down at the eggs. There's a noticeable hesitation as he looks at them, and then
Best eggs, man. Best eggs in town.
Indeed, Brawley. It's always much appreciated when you visit. I look forward to what happens the rest of the day, and hopefully some good sales, good fortunes to you, my friend.
All right, well, if you took about 2 minutes, I'll go grab my hammer and some nails, and I'll fix your table down.
I do appreciate it. And he turns away from you back into the stall. As he does so, he tries to inconspicuously dump the eggs off the plate onto the ground, but it's a little bit noticeable. I would say maybe you catch a glimpse of it. Maybe he feels that your cooking's not as good as you think that it is, but he does show appreciation for the gesture.
Maybe he's vegetarian. Never seen a cat be a vegetarian before.
Making your way over towards your stall, right down the street, arriving at your forge. It is open and has a few lean-tos that serve as covering to block out the sun. 2 large forges sit on either side of a large well of dirty water, and between them are 2 large beaten anvils. To the sides are rows of shovels, pickaxes, small hammers, and other tools used to scrape a living here. As you step in to the open stall that is your forge, standing just inside the entrance, a figure that is cloaked and hooded to block out the sun, or hide their face. Either option could be the case. His cloak is disheveled and worn, brown and faded from sand and wear, and he wears old leather boots and dark pants. And as you enter into your forge, he approaches you, and he says, it's tonight. They want you to be there tonight. And he pauses and looks around at figures passing by on the street. And after a moment, and satisfied that no one is overly interested in the conversation, he continues. They're meeting at the Coiled Root. Bram has requested you come. Can't say I understand why, but what do I know? Jarrell, go tell them. Jarrell, go fetch them. Jarrell, bring back wine. But my service is invaluable, and yours will be too. He hands you a small paper, and on the paper is the symbol that you know of the blacksmith, Bram the Anvil Thorn. And when you open it, there is one number written on it, 9, and one word, violins. And Jarrell looks up to you and says, that's all I have for you. If you'll excuse me, I'll be off. Important things to do for the cause. And he turns and begins to head out into the street and heads east towards the markets.
Do I know what 9 violins means?
You would take it to mean, judging by the context, that the meeting tonight will happen at 9, and violins is likely a passphrase.
Copy.
As we move from there over the rooftops of the lower ward, the sun rises higher in the sky. As it does, the heat increases and the ward comes alive. People move through the streets and vendors yell out their wares. And as we come down, the ashen markets sprawl like a scar across the lower wards. A grim maze of stalls, shanties, and smoke-choked alleys pressed beneath the shadow of the obsidian spires. Once a bustling trade hub in the days before the Arcane uprising, now it is a place of desperate bargains and whispered defiance, where the line between merchant and criminal is long since burned away. The air here is thick, not with spice or perfume, but with soot, hot metal, and the reek of sweat. Tattered awnings of stitched together sailcloth flutter in the hot wind, dyed and faded hues that once might have meant something, but now all the same sickly gray from the ash and sand that blows in the air. Lanterns of alchemical flame cast a sickly blue glow across tables of rusted weapon parts, scavenged machinery, and repurposed arcane scraps. A dwarf with an eye patch hammers iron into something vaguely sword-shaped, while a herringon child runs by with a satchel full of pilfered bread. Every few feet, someone is watching you. Always watching. Hawk-eyed urchins, veiled traders, or worse, informants. Beneath the surface, commerce is the real trade. Deals are made in silence, sealed with a nod and a copper mark pressed into a palm. Trust is rare, betrayal is routine, but still, the market lives. They are more a bazaar than they are a market, but they are the heartbeat, a living pulse of the lower wards. Every clang of steel or guttural barter is a note in the symphony of a people surviving a world that seeks to erase them. Here, revolution is bartered one whisper at a time. At the market's edge, a burned-out fountain cradles a half-melted statue of a forgotten god, now used as a message board, meeting place, or gallows, depending on the day. And turning off from there, across the courtyard, we find the ward-based tavern. Inside, the empty tavern comes awake. Some musicians tune their instruments near a small stage front. Waitresses and waiters hustle from front to back carrying trays and pints, hurrying them to tables and to the bar top. Occasionally they stop and spit into one of them and wipe it out with their apron before placing it again. Behind the bar, collecting the pints and trays and placing them underneath, we find another figure. Nyx, if you would care to introduce your character.
Okay. So she's just a tiefling that's starting to kind of like hustle around trying to keep on top of all the different people calling out orders or like the other servers coming up to the counter calling out for like trying to fill more it's not mugs, the real big ones.
Pints?
Yeah, pints. We'll go with that. She's just like practically like trying not to trip over her own feet as she's like hustles around and trying to grab more pints and fill them up, keep them clean, trying to tossing some down the countertop every once in a while, like sliding it across to someone who's sitting at the countertop, and just kind of making small talk with those around her and everything.
As you sort of slide one of these pints across, carrying on with some small talk, sitting on the other side of the bar, as the only current patron at the bar front right now, Pyron, if you would care to introduce your character.
Pyron is just sitting at the bar with a pint already in her hand. She's a 4'5" about average sized dwarf woman with a big poof of fiery red hair and a short red beard. And she's just kind of slumped over the bar, just with a thing of mead, probably kind of sweaty from working the forge, and bags under her eyes, just hanging out, drinking.
As the two of you are here in this mid-morning, having a drink and sharing some small talk, discussing whatever it is you might be discussing, the doors to the tavern open, and a figure makes their way in. Dressed in brown and worn leather boots, dark pants, and a brown hooded cloak, he makes his way over to the bar top and sits down a couple seats away. You both instantly recognize him. This is Jarrell. And he says to you, "Nix, can I get an ale, please? And a cask of wine to go?"
Sending out running their errands again.
As always. As you bring out the ale for him and the cask and set them both sort of on the counter, the cask being like a small barrel of wine, and set it on the counter, he sets 5 gold on the counter, as well as a small piece of paper underneath the 5 gold. And he looks to you, over to Pyron, and he says, "Very nice to see you as well, Pyron." And he reaches out to shake your hand.
She'll take his hand really roughly. She's got her big her gloves on still, so she just very firm grip.
Yeah.
Nice to see you, Jerome.
As he shakes your hand and slips a small piece of paper with a letter into your hand, both bearing the mark of Bram the anvil. He says quietly to you both, "Tonight, the wine will be put to good use tonight. Garrick and Bram would like to know if you two would be free to join us at the old coiled root."
I'll be there.
I'll say I have Nyx kind of just like silently wait and look at Pyron and kind of wait to see what she says before just kind of nodding a few times in agreement without really saying much.
Jarrell then leans in a little bit closer over the bar towards you, Nyx, and he says, I'd also like to know if you may have some time after the meeting." There's something in the way he says it. It gives you that familiar sense. It's another attempt, and he really can't take the hint. He is slimy and dirty, even for the slums, and yet he continually tries to make passes at you.
She just kind of puts her forehead in her hand, like leaning her elbow on the counter, and it's just like, I don't think so. I've got a late shift today. You're gonna have to hop out of it to go over there, and then, it's just not tonight.
Yeah, of course. It's understandable. Responsibilities and and whatnot. And he sort of downs the ale in a quick swig, collects the cask of wine off of the countertop, gives an awkward sort of like half up, half down nod because he's not sure what to do towards both of you, and then quickly turns and exits the tavern. Nick's looking at this paper that he gave you. It bears the mark of Garrick Ironjaw. And when you open it discreetly under the countertop, it contains 1 number, 9, and 1 word, violins. Pyron, when you open your small paper, It from Bram, it also contains one number, 9, and the word violins as well. And you were also slipped a letter.
I pocket the letter and I don't open it here.
Okay.
I'll just stuff it in my little leather apron. That's what it is.
Leather apron.
I was gonna have Nyx kind of like look over, like again, just silently over at Pyron, just kind of have that like look of like, are we on the same, like got the same thing, like we know what's going on, right? Kind of thing.
Yeah, Pyron will just nod and be like, yeah. And just sipping her ale, I'm assuming.
Pull back from the tavern. Instead of going up into the air and over the rooftops of the lower ward, this time we go down, deep within the tunnels dug below the slums, where the air is almost more pure and clean. And down here we find another group of individuals, milling about in different ways, moving supplies, securing payments, directing others where to go within the staging area. Through a gated entryway, we see a small group of darkly clothed individuals coming back into this area, from outside the city walls perhaps. A group of 4. And as they enter, waiting for them at the gate, we can see Rena, the crow, Dell, waiting just inside. She speaks up to the group as they enter. I assume the run went well, and a tiefling with dark red, almost purple colored skin removes her hood and looks up to Rena and says, "Yes, Mom. It was a success. No issues." And Rena smiles and looks softly over the papers with information that were traded for this run. This was good information, well worth the run, I'm quite sure. She turns and approaches a rather large figure that is also entering with the other 3, a member of this 4-person group. If, Austin, you would care to introduce your character.
I am also large in stature. I am about 7'10". Got pale skin, long black hair. I'm wearing a deep brown cloak over my common clothing.
As you're making your way in, Rena approaches you and says, "You did well. This run was important to establish a foothold, and I can't express my gratitude for your participation. Since your arrival, we have taught you all we can and benefited from your efforts and your knowledge. Perhaps you're ready for more."
What did you have in mind, Mom?
She turns to look at a figure that is standing behind her, dressed in hooded robes that are well worn and distressed. As he approaches, you know from previous dealings for this to be Jarrell. He gives a nod to Rena, regarding her with respect, and then turns to you. He says to you, "There's a meeting tonight, and Rena believes that you are ready to take part." And he hands you a small slip of paper with the mark of Rena on it. He turns again, looking at you, this time with a scowl on his face. And he whispers, quieter so that Rena can't hear, and he says, "Stay away from Gwyneth, Bonk. You hear me? I'll not hear of you spending your time with my sister again. Jarrell may be a courier to you, but I can carry my own weight. I don't care if you are big. I'll not have you bewitching my sister with your tall tales of the free folk, filling her head with nonsense."
Quiet down now, Jarrell.
He gives you one more sharp look, and then he turns to leave, once again nodding to Rena in respect, and says to her, "Mom, as always, a pleasure." And as he leaves, you can open your paper to see one number, 9, and one word, violins. Rena turns to you, and she says, "Bring that with you this evening. It is my endorsement, and you will need it." And she reaches out and places her hand on your arm, in a very maternal sense, regards you, but for a moment, and nods. And then she turns and begins to walk through the staging area, talking with others, and disappearing into the shadows to carry on with her work. We rise up through the crumbling earth and the hardened baked sand, rising again to the ashen market, but moving slowly toward the southern edge. The late afternoon sun now hangs low in the western sky. Tucked behind a crumbling tannery and veiled by sheets of discarded forge canvas, there lies a narrow fissure in the wall, no more than shoulder wide. No signs, no lights, no reason to look twice. But to those who know, this is the gate. And as you pass through in silence, the alley swallows the sound of your footsteps the moment you step inside. Stone walls, slick with condensation and years of soot, seem to lean inward, narrowing with every step. Glyphs, long faded, some freshly etched, line the walls, glowing faintly in infrared reds and chalky blues. The air is damp and smells of rust, mildew, and burnt parchment. And yet the deeper you go, the more alive it feels. Then the murmur begins, not from mouths, but from the walls themselves. Faint whispers echo in unknown tongues, arcane residue clinging to the bones of spells long cast. No one's ever seen who enchanted them, but the alley speaks. And sometimes it listens. The path winds like a serpent until it opens suddenly into a long curved corridor, carved directly into the foundation stones of Iphren-Ka itself. This is Whispering Alley, the true heart of the Ashen Markets. No stalls, no bartering in the open. Just coded gestures, coins slipped in leather-wrapped hands, and words spoken only in shadows and safety. Hooded figures drift between alcoves and crevices that serve as shop fronts, if you can call them that. An old elven woman sells anti-scrying charms made from dried cow tongues. A tiefling fences lays out broken spell gems and forbidden glyph paper. A shattered golem's chestplate is propped against the wall like a trophy, its arcane sigil carved out and replaced with a crude fist. Here, you can buy names, secrets, a back door into a mage's vault, a one-way map to a ley line reactor, or a meeting with someone who isn't supposed to exist. About midway down the alley, we find a particular storefront, with bits and bobs hanging on display. Inside the store is small, but the shelves are packed with all manner of items, potions and tinctures, herbs, and different types of creations. Separated from the store by a thin but high counter, we can see through a partially open curtain that the living area in the back of the room. Behind the counter, the owner and operator. Ellis, if you would care to introduce your character.
Yes. So you see this 6'3" figure, tall, lean, some muscle on him. He's covered up in black and he has tan skin with contrasting white hair. You notice at his neck there's a peak of a tattoo, but it can't quite be made out. And he remains nonchalant, leaning back against a pole in the front and just honestly relaxing with his eyes closed as if he's not paying attention or aware of his surroundings.
It's been a quiet day here in the alley. Not too many comings and goings, and you yourself probably haven't left the alley that much. Why would you need to? Everything you could want or need is here. Keeping your head down and waiting for the right opportunity. That has been more important. And as you sit there and rest, sometimes sorting through your newest acquisitions or looking over your inventory, the curtain hanging over the entrance parts. And standing inside your store now is a cloaked and hooded figure. Jarrell enters and crosses the small room to the counter. He slides a small scrap of paper across the counter and looks at you and simply says, "Coiled root, tonight."
Ellis grabs the paper and slides it in his pocket and looks Drell in the eye and says, "Okay, goodbye."
He gives you a nod, and then he turns and heads toward the door. The small paper you noticed, as you slipped into your pocket, bore the mark of Lady Renna, the Crow, Dell. Just before reaching the exit, Jarrell stops, turns, looks you up and down, and sort of scoffs lightly to himself. and under his breath he mumbles just loud enough for you to hear, "Ghost, my ass." And then he turns and exits the store.
Ellis yells, attempting to get his attention as he walks away. Come over here and find out then.
He hurriedly makes his way out the door and continues moving on down the alleyway, disappearing into the shadows, very clearly not willing to take that confrontation up front. The paper that you slipped into your pocket, when you take a moment to open it, it has one number on it, 9, and the word violins. Below that is one sentence. Try to keep an open mind. Night falls over the lower ward. The heat of the day lessens. Some of the rays of sunlight have left the ground hot and scorched. But as the remaining warmth is slowly disappearing from the air and ground, we find ourselves at the northeastern edge of the lower ward. In a small abode, slightly better decorated, and with a warmer feel of welcome. Even for here in the slums, this feels more like a home. Sitting outside on the porch, listening to the sounds traveling throughout the city, and taking in the setting sun on the horizon, the last flashes of gold and purple mixed with green and orange. And the smells carry out into the air. The linger of the food hangs like a thin spiderweb caught on the breeze. It was a decent enough meal. Nothing out of the ordinary except the addition of a fresh loaf of bread brought to you earlier in secret. He always ensures that you are taken care of, and this is no different. You need the nourishment. You need the strength. A small cough escapes you, and the night air is stark in contrast to the heat of the day. The wind brings in a slight chill from the north that isn't heated by the sun, and it feels chilly. The heat of the day here is only rivaled by the chill of the nights, and you probably shouldn't sit out here much longer. But Nesha, would you care to introduce your character?
You see a 5'2" drow with like bluish gray skin lift her face to the wind, kind of basking in the cool breeze. She looks pretty frail and thin, and she has a sort of permanent cough. If you look close enough, she has some dark runes etched into her skin in some places, and deep blue eyes with ears that point really high to the sky, with short black hair.
As you sit and observe what's going on throughout the night, hello, Nesha. The voice cuts the night air and the somewhat peaceful atmosphere. And standing out on the edge of the street, away from the house just a little ways, you can see a figure, dressed in hooded clothes that are almost too dark to discern, but you recognize them. Jarrell is here. And he says to you, I have a delivery for you. Probably not as nice as the ones that he brings you, but I was instructed to bring it regardless. And he approaches the porch area of the home cautiously. We hope that you will be joining us, he says, as he hands you a small paper scrap with the symbol of Rig Calder on it. Shall I tell them that you'll attend?
Did you give one to Ellis?
Indeed I did.
We'll see.
Well, I bid you a fine evening, and I look forward to seeing you soon at the Coiled Root, should you choose to attend. And as he says this, he steps back with a slight nod and turns to walk into the darkness. The paper that you now hold, with the mark of Rig on it, when opened, contains one number, 9, and one word, violins. When you look up from the paper, you find another figure standing at the entry path to the house. Dressed in his usual attire with a small wrap of no doubt medicines and trinkets, Ellis now stands before you.
Nesha! I have things. He yells as he puts his arms in the air dramatically.
Tell me you brought soup.
Soup and medicine, but Jabrel, or whatever his name is, really was out here getting on my last nerves today.
Oh, you just missed him. He was here just a bit ago. I don't know why he didn't give my letter to you.
Oh, he's lucky because he would have caught my hands all the way today. He says as he puts his hand on her shoulder, letting her rest against him.
She leans her head against him and says, Ellis, you can't try to fight everyone you see.
I can try, though.
I'm gonna run out of salve to bandage all your wounds.
I'll be all right. It's the other people that should worry about me.
She's gonna punch his arm and drag him inside. Come on, let's go eat.
He dramatically holds the area she punched and leans back and yells, "Oh my god, ah!"
You know, if I would have hit any harder, I would have broken my hand.
No, that was pretty tough.
As the two of you make your way into the abode to settle in and eat the night's food, if you want to call it that, we pull out from there with night now settling in. We find ourselves again soaring over rooftops through the cold night air. The dim lights of lanterns and fires can be seen in the darkness of the setting. At the edges of the lower wards, where soot-drenched streets press against the crumbling perimeter wall of Iphren-Ka, stands the withered husk of a tree, older than the city itself and larger than anything else here. Its bark, petrified into charcoal gray stone, coils and twists like a titan's grasp, clawing toward a sky long since turned cold. The once mighty canopy is now just a silhouette of gnarled limbs against the arcane glow of the obsidian spires above. They say the tree was once a conduit for primal magic, rooted deep in the earth's memory before the archmages bled the land dry. At its base is a crooked, moss-covered door set between two massive roots that snake into the ground like sleeping serpents. There's no signage, no lanterns, just a faint scent of smoke on the wind and a carved knot in the bark. A coiled root sigil, to those who know to look. And at night, the area hums with subtle activity. Rag-covered beggars linger longer than they should. A crow lands on one of the roots and taps 3 times. Arriving on the streets just outside of the tavern, we find Nyx and Pyron. You are a little early, and you have a moment if you wish to discuss anything, read any letters, or go about any other business. But Nyx and Pyron, what is it that you wish to do here on the streets outside of the coiled root?
Pyron's gonna take out the letter that she had stuffed in her apron now and, kind of discreetly as possible, read it.
Mhm.
And
You open it up
over.
with Bram's seal on the outside of it. And it says, "Dearest Pyron, I regret that I was unable to contact you before this. I have returned from my journey east, and I am back in the lower ward. I wanted to come see you, but the shame of failure, the weight of my choices, and the urgency of matters at hand all prevented me from doing so. I do not mean to make excuses, and the truth is that even without these things, I don't know if I would have the courage. I do not have a choice any longer, it would seem. With the death of Lady Elira, we believe that some of the residents of the lower ward may be in danger. I did not wish to mark you for danger if I am targeted. But we are still gathering information and trying to piece together what happened. But the details are still unclear. Our investigation has revealed some interesting information, though. Were you privy to the ones that Lady Elira and Bregor were taking in their own home? We know that there were at least 2 living with them. However, their bodies were not found. We desperately want to make contact and ensure they are safe. We must begin to move quickly now, as it seems that perhaps our ambitions have been revealed. I do not want to give away too much in this letter, as there is always a possibility for interception, but I hope that you will be available to meet with me soon. I look forward to catching up with you, and I also have some updates on Sarun. Keep your head down and your hammer strike true. With hope, Bram.
Nyx obviously being taller than Pyron, just notices she's kind of fumbling a little bit with the paper. Doesn't like read anything, still, respecting whatever privacy is needed for that, but she kind of like nudges her a little bit with her elbow and is like, what else you got there?
Just a letter from, well,
Just a letter?
just a letter.
No.
Just a letter.
Just saying hello?
Just a letter.
Okay.
We're here for reasons. That's
Okay.
not. We'll talk
Okay.
about it later. And she'll fold it up and put it back in her.
Okay. Sorry.
I think.
Arriving at the outside of the tavern, as you sort of walked closer here, you know the sigil to look for, and knocking on the door, entering inside, you step in, and the door between the roots opens to you. Stepping inside is like descending into the belly of something ancient and alive. The interior has been hollowed out with surgical care, preserving the natural curves and knots of the tree's massive trunk, and the air is warm, thick, with the scent of pipe smoke, spiced tea, damp earth, and old wood. The main chamber is a circular lounge carved into the trunk's heart, filled with low tables and mismatched cushions around root stump stools. Shelves grow from the walls themselves, holding bottles of stolen brandy, brewed mushrooms, fermented nectar, and dream leaf wraps. Soft lute and flute music drift from a corner. And the clientele? A carefully balanced mix of drifters, dreamers, broken poets, and watchers. Some are here to forget. Others are here to listen. All are watched. Every word in the coiled root is heard by someone, whether or not it's spoken aloud. In the corner, furthest from you at the door, away from the door, Jarrell waits, seated on a cushion near the back right corner of the room. And as you enter and make eye contact, he gives a subtle nod backwards at the wall behind him. And as you two approach and give a soft knock on the wall, a voice comes through. Password.
So Nyx kind of look at Pyron for a moment, and then she's gonna look at the little like note like in her pocket, so she just kind of like reaches into her pocket and touches it, and then just says 9 violins, very much with a question mark.
Violence. She'll just reinforce that.
And as you both speak the word, the voice comes through the wall again. Aye, violence is always the answer. And the wall shifts and creaks slightly, opening to reveal a hidden room. Hidden behind a false wall of bark and smoke pipes is a narrow tunnel that spirals down into the deepest roots of the tree, into a space known to you only as the taproot. In the taproot, lit by flickering amber crystals and guarded by a rotating ward of enchantments and steel, the chamber is large enough to seat a dozen comfortably around a table carved from a single root disc, its surface etched with runes that dull scrying and silence magical surveillance. Here, the true leaders of the rebellion gather. Maps of the city and spires line the walls. Crates of forged permits, enchanted scroll seals, and arcane-resistant tools fill the corners. Notes scrawled in code hang from root tendrils like dried leaves, and this is no tavern basement. It's a war room, disguised as a forgotten root of the past. Bram approaches you, Pyron, smiling faintly, and says, I see Jarrell was successful in locating you. Did he also give you my letter?
He did.
Were you able to read it?
I was. Yes.
Well, we shall speak more after the meeting if you're willing.
Sure.
Nix, during this time, Garrick Ironjaw approaches you. Garrick is a large human individual, older in age, probably in his late 50s, early 60s, but still carries a stature about him that is intimidating. Once a gladiator in the arenas, fighting for entertainment and amusement, he proved himself over and over again and has a very large scar that runs from under his eye down along the side of his jaw, hence giving him the nickname Iron Jaw. And he says to you, Nix, I'm glad you were able to make it. I wasn't sure if you were up for it yet.
I wasn't sure if I was going to be either, but it's time.
Summoned you here for reasons that will be made clear soon. For now, while we wait, eat, drink, and thank you for coming. And the two of you can see behind him on this main table there is a spread laid out, including the cask of wine that was picked up earlier. But a assortment of different breads and foods, not great foods, but for the wards, pretty decent spread. As you all wait for the others to arrive.
All right, Pirate, I don't know about you. She goes over to her. I'm going to get some wine. So she just goes over and pours herself a glass and downs it fairly quick.
Pyron will get herself a glass, but she'll drink it slowly. Just kind of hanging out, waiting.
Sipping it, nursing it, so to
It's
speak.
business. This is business. Can't get too sloshed.
As the two of you are enjoying these beverages, entering the room a moment after you two, coming down the steps into the room, is a large hulking figure who is approached by Bram as well, giving him a firm handshake and saying to him, Brawley, honored you could make it. I see you've gotten bigger since last we saw each other.
I've been eating a lot of protein.
Yeah. You must be eating 3-4 dozen eggs a day at this point.
What about that? Yes.
Yes. Thank goodness chickens are the one thing easy to come by here in the wards, eh?
True that.
Yes, well, it shall prove to
by
be
the way,
What?
I brought those violins you asked for.
The violins? You brought violins?
I mean, they're not the greatest looking violins, but I brought them.
You made them.
That's what you said to the letter. Correct?
I'm assuming you brought 9 of them.
Yes.
Very well. You can place them in the corner, and we will put them to good use. Well, the night shall prove to be a fruitful night, I believe. And remember, we may need the assistance of both of you. Your ties are invaluable to us now.
Right. I'll talk to him.
Very well. Very well. Well, there is more protein, more food, and drinks to be had on the table, so help yourself while we wait for the others to arrive.
Wonderful. And as he walks over there, he grabs like a whole chicken, and like if there could be like a pony keg there,
Sure.
it'd be a pony keg.
Sure.
Avail.
I said there are on the table, noticeably, there are 2 larger glasses that are almost the size of this cask of wine, but with handles on them, and there's 2 of them set on the table. Too large for many of the other people to pick up and wield, but very clearly set aside for you and someone else.
I fill those 2 up and set one like kind of like in a corner and wait in that corner.
As you reach the corner and begin to wait and sip on yours, the door opens once more, and 2 individuals step into this back room. Ellis and Nesha have arrived. Rena and Rig approach the 2 of you and welcome you. Rena says to you, Ellis, so glad you could make it, Ellis. I hope that both of you have been of you being away won't hurt the store too much while we take up your time.
Oh, thanks, Rena. It's no problem. It's always lovely having you here. Just a brawl or whatever his name is. Next time he comes at me, I can't make any promises.
Understood. We'll be more cautious in who we send to fetch or deliver any goods or supplies or messages from him here on out. I understand Jarrell can be a little annoying at times. Rig says to you, Nesha, it's wonderful to see you, Nesha. How are you feeling this evening?
Did it have to be so far away?
Unfortunately, the need for secrecy is required. We must keep these meetings as clandestine as possible. A gathering of this size would surely draw the attention of the Mage Guard or worse.
I'm familiar with the Magocrocy. I just want to get this over with.
Understood. Well, we shall begin shortly. Please enjoy food and drinks as you wait, if either of you needs to or wants to. The rest should be arriving shortly.
Nisha's gonna lean against Ellis and ask if he would like to go grab some wine.
Ellis grabs a hold of Nesha and says, "Yeah, it's time to party tonight." Well, not really, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, but don't drink too much. We actually have stuff to do tonight.
Don't worry, I'm the best in the biz, he says as he pulls her in closer.
She's gonna start walking towards the wine. Sorry.
Beautiful. As the two of you make your way towards the wine that is on the table, the door creaks open once more, and another hulking figure enters into the room, followed by Jarrell. Brenna turns from the conversation with Ellis and the others and moves to greet them. Bonk, wonderful. I believe that's the last of them. Jarrell, would you double check on the perimeter again and ensure we are safe? And Jarrell says back to Rena, of course, Mom. I'll maintain the security as it pleases you. And Jarrell sort of glances through a slit in the wall to ensure that the room outside is clear, and then exits again up the stairs and out through the wall door. So Bonk has arrived.
Hey, Lefty, over here.
I'm gonna walk over to him, but I'm gonna try not to show my face to anybody.
Okay.
And I'm gonna pick up the glass that's sitting next to him.
Very well.
I'm gonna cheers him.
Cheers, bro.
And then I'm gonna whisper something to him. And then in this room, is there somewhere that's like darker, like a less lit area?
In fact, there is the corner that he has moved to. Knowing what you expected, he has already moved into the darkest corner of the room.
All right, I'll stay there then.
Okay. The leaders that you have met with and that greeted you upon your entrance here take their seats at the table. And they invite any who wish to join and sit around the table. Are any of you taking the seats?
Pyron will go and sit down. Kind of waving Nyx over.
Let my brother know to, or let Donk know. You stay here. I'll sit there. And I pull up like a chair that is way too small, probably for me, and slide it like do the cool guy backwards chair, and sit and slam my big mug on the table and put my arms over it.
Okay. Anyone else?
Nyx, seeing that Pyron took one of the chairs and everything, finally kind of turns away from the glass of wine and the bottom of the she kind of turns around and sees her like waving over, so she's like nods and starts making her way, and then she kind of like starts looking around the room at everyone, and sees a familiar face of Ellis and starts and kind of like fumbles with her glass for a second and maybe catches it.
I need Nix and Ellis both to make perception checks.
Okay.
Ooh.
Yay,
20?
first roll.
I got a 3.
I got a 9 plus 3, so 12.
12. So yes, Nix, you do notice the familiar face across this room. However, you also notice that Ellis seems to be rather distracted with Nesha and everything that's going on.
As you recognize him, and kind of fumbles her glass a little bit and just stares for a moment and is clearly like looking him over, kind of like assessing him a little bit. And then she looks, her like eyes move over to Nesha, and she glares for just a second, and then like sees Pyron like waving her over again, and so she kind of like realizing they're in a more serious situation, and now is not the time for this. She goes to sit down next to Pyron, but she keeps like glancing over at the two of them.
Nesha, if you would care to make a perception check. Bonk.
13.
You can also make a perception check.
16. I rolled 16.
16. You catch eyes of this tiefling crossing the room, hesitating for a second, and just mean-mugging you for a split second. And then continuing on to sit next to the red-headed dwarf that is currently at the table. Did anybody see what Austin got for the perception?
I rolled a 5.
A 5. Observing everything that's going on in the room, you're not catching out details too specifically, but you are seeing some movement as some join the table throughout the room.
Can I like react to noticing?
You can do whatever you want.
Nesha's gonna like elbow Ellis and ask why this tiefling across the room is mean mugging her.
So, Ellis, this draws your attention towards Nix, who is now sitting at the other side of the table next to Pyron, next to this red-headed dwarf.
At the initial feel of being bumped, he looks over at her and then looks over to the direction of what she was saying was glaring at her, and he makes out Nix in the crowd. He's a little bit drunk, let's say, from the wine and the atmosphere.
A little tipsy,
but the second a little bit. But the second he makes out Nix, it almost like he instantly sobered up and he pauses. His yellow eyes are pale, like they've seen a ghost, and he whispers her name underneath his breath that not even like anyone in his nearby vicinity could make out, and he just freezes and doesn't know how to process seeing her there after everything that happened.
So here, deep beneath the roots of the Coiled Root Tavern, we have this awkward moment. A slight air of recognition. Nesha, is there any reaction that you would have to Ellis's reaction?
And Nessa's gonna, she's gonna like furrow her brows and look in confusion between them and ask him what's wrong, because she's never seen him not. There's only been one time in her life that she's ever seen him lose his composure before.
Nesha's voice kind of snaps him out of that initial shock, and he turns to her quickly, but his eyes aren't very calculated, and says, "I know her." And his voice is shaky, almost as if he's scared to hear it himself. And he's just trying to ground himself in reality, knowing that this isn't the place to outwardly express his feelings, especially to all these people, but is having a hard time controlling that.
Would Nesha be able to perceive that this discomfort could be caused by the same time he was upset last time.
Make an insight check.
12.
12. The visceral reaction that he's having in this moment, while he's not broken, it does seem to weigh on him almost as heavily, but with a different sense. It's not heartbreak. It's more of almost a sense of relief.
I think she's going to pull on his arm and ask if he wants to get out of there because it makes her uncomfortable seeing him not in control of himself.
Ellis immediately shakes his head, almost as if he's trying to get back into his usual senses, and whispers to her, "We have to be here, and I have to know that this is her and I'm not seeing a ghost."
Nisha's gonna like kind of pull away because she feels like she might be pressuring him and wait for him to go to the table first.
Nyx keeps like glancing over, and so she catches her kind of like grabbing his arm a bit more, or pulling on him a bit more, and she definitely, like, her jaw tightens and she bristles a bit, and like her nails kind of dig into the table a little, and she just kind of turns away and kind of like put in like a blinder with her hand on her eye, or on the side of her eye, and just kind of keeps looking in pretty much any other direction except towards them.
In this moment, I'm going to ask two things. Pyron, make a perception check. And
I was just about to ask.
Ellis and Nesha, are you moving to the table to sit?
That's a 15.
She's gonna follow his lead, so.
Yes, Ellis is going to move to the table, and he's going to glance at Nyx and reach out almost as if he wants to go over to her, but stops himself knowing that they're dealing with an important matter, and decides to hold off until after the meeting.
So the two of you join at the table, sort of almost across the table from where Nyx and Pyron are sitting. Pyron with a 15. Nyx is visibly distraught, upset, angered, quite possibly bamboozled. It's not 100% certain at this point, but there is definitely something off about Nyx's behavior.
She's gonna just kind of not really put her hand on her, but just kind of like touch her hand to her arm and like give her a look of like what's up. Like she doesn't say anything, but she just kind of goes like what's wrong?
I'd say she's kind of not really in a trance, but that's like the best word I can think of right now. And so when Pyron like puts her hand on her arm, she like flinches and pulls her arm away just as an instinct. And when she makes eye contact with her, she kind of like notices that like look of like, "Are you okay?" And she like really like low asks, she's like, "Are you sure you didn't see anyone else come out of there, or anyone else? It was just me."
She's gonna pitch her voice, so say, "Yeah, just you."
And she kind of lets out like a shaky breath, looks over one more time in their direction, notices they've sat down, and then again kind of puts her little blinder up and tries to ignore that part of the room.
Sure.
Quite literally the elephant in the room.
Pyron's gonna follow her eyesight and look over at the other two, and just kind of like sizing them up and like looking at them and being like, "Fuck is going on here?" But like not saying it, but just being very confused.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Ellis is going to look back at Pyron and raise his brow like, "Oh, hello?"
Just a head nod, I guess. Like,
Oh, like the chin raise? Like
Yeah.
the sup?
yeah, the sup.
He's going to turn and whisper to Nesha and be like, "I like this one," and nod.
So
Wait, for real? Like you was just shaking in your boots and now you're chill?
I'm masking.
Oh.
So, here now, sitting around the table, some of you, others lingering a bit behind. The chamber is warm with firelight and thick with pipe smoke and the smells of food and wine. A round stone and root table sits at the center, etched with a burn-ringed map of Iphren-Ka, the city, and the surrounding territories. Around it sit the leaders of the resistance. Lanterns burn low, wards shimmer faintly on the walls, and from above, the muffled laughter from the tavern barely pierces the quiet. The leaders of this spark of rebellion are present. Garrick Ironjaw Voss, a former gladiator, built like a fortress with a scar across his jawline. Bram the Anvil Thorn, a burly dwarven smith, arms crossed over a soot-stained leather apron, and the smell of metal and sweat clinging to him. Rena, the crow Dell, lean in dark clothes, perched on a high stool, eyes constantly moving around the room. And Rig, the stormborn Calder, a wild-eyed, storm-marked warrior with sea-salted braids and tattoos, once ship-bound, and now here in this city as a revolutionary. Garrick rises from his seat and says, "Let it be known that tonight we forge the first links of a chain that will one day drag the archmages from their thrones. You have been brought here not by accident, but by recognition. Each of you has drawn the eye of someone seated at this table. You are fighters, survivors, outliers, and now you are candidates for something greater." And he gestures to the others around the table and he says, "Let your sponsors speak." And one by one, these resistance leaders introduce you who they've chosen. Rena gestures to Ellis and then over toward Bonk, but ever so faintly so as not to give away his exact position. And she says, "I pulled them from the alleys before the spires could cage their souls. They have quick hands, quicker minds, and they've seen the rot beneath the polished marble. They would make fine additions." Bram looks towards Pyron and Brawley, and he says, "A hammer only needs the right forge. I've seen what this one can become. We don't need more spells. We don't need more hardy, antagonizing, egotistical fighters. We need steel that doesn't bend. And these two, they don't bend." And Rig looks to Nesha. It says, "The storm that comes, it'll need those who know hardship, like Ken. The storm's with this one, and I can feel it." And Garrick gestures over toward Nyx. And Garrick says, "Information and the quick and efficient removal of obstacles will be invaluable. There are few that are more efficient than this one, not to mention the likely need for revenge that lingers in her past." Then he gestures around the table, nods to each of the leaders present, and he says to them, "Then we vote. Are they worthy? Are they the right group?" Each leader raises a hand, and the votes are unanimous. And Garrick says once again, "Then it's done. Welcome, our new flame bearers. You will help to usher in a new age, an age of equality, an age in which all will have opportunity, voice, and purpose. To the new age." And he lifts a glass and toasts, joined by the other leaders around the table that respond in echo. The new age. Garrick wipes his mouth, where some of the ale has trickled down the scar that splits his lip to jaw. "Now to the matter of business." And he nods to Rena, who leans forward and begins. Looking around at each of you, she says in a low voice, "You've heard whispers. We've buried a friend. Lady Alara Morrow, the ghost hand, dead in a fire that burned too clean, too precise. This wasn't random." And she tosses a scorched ring onto the table, and it clinks, not bouncing, but but landing like a gavel. And she says, this was a message from them. And Rig pipes in with a growling voice. High society wanted to silence them. What they're going to get is a war. And Bram off to the side, sort of snorting to himself, he says, they just sped the clock forward. We can't wait anymore. The revolution starts now. But without structure, without allies, this flame will burn too fast. I made the trip east, and the path is blocked. The only path through the mountain range is heavily guarded, and we cannot reach out to the rest of the world for help. We will have to do this ourselves. And as he says this, Garrick spreads a worn map of the continent of Kemet'Het with markers on it and begins pointing to each of them. Starting in the center, Iphren-Ka, the obsidian spires and black pyramid. This is the seat of arcane rule, ever watching. His finger moves to the east to the bottom of the mountain range, and he says, the eastern mines, lifeblood of arcane ore, ripe for sabotage. His finger moves north to the Forgotten Lands, beyond the Valewood, home to the rumored free folk, warrior clans untouched by the Magocrocy. And then his finger moves west to Thaltorin, the island of druids, mist-shrouded, primal, neutral, but deep-rooted with power. He points to the map as a whole and he says, we need allies. The druids of Thaltorin won't take sides, but they hate what the Magocrocy has done to the land. We could reach out. We could convince them balance lies in revolution. Rig slams his finger down north and he says, the free folk remember freedom. They're warriors, tough, proud, and hidden. 2 among us have walked their paths. Perhaps it is time to walk them again. And Rena sort of casually leans forward and points to the city of Iphren-Ka and says, destabilization. That's our bread and meat. I can feed you targets, caravans, supply chains, enchantment forges. We can hit hard and then vanish. And Bram says, you'll need weapons. Not just steel ore that resists magic, tears holes in their fancy spells. Mines in the east are guarded, but not impenetrable. We could take what we need. And then Rena's tone, colder and much more poignant, says, all of these actions, any that we choose, will draw attention. And when the time comes, the adjudicators will come. Garrick sort of leans back in his chair and rubs the scar on his chin. He says each one of these adjudicators is a nightmare wrapped in robes. Not just mages, war mages, trained from birth, forged in blood and arcane fire. Each is a walking execution order. If you were to meet one anytime soon, pray that your aim is good and your heart is steady. All we can do now is provide you the options. It will be up to you, all of you, to decide your best and first course of action. We will do our part. But know that we do not send you empty-handed. This task will be heavy, filled with danger, and could end in martyrdom. But if it does, your actions will inspire others to complete this charge. Our world will once again know equality for all. And Rena sits up and addresses the table as a whole. Obviously, we don't expect this to be easy or cheap. It will require time, stealth, commitment, and above all, belief. Belief in the cause. Belief that we can be successful. We fully intend to help you in any way that we can, as you are helping us. And with that in mind, your sponsors have provided some things to assist you in your endeavor. Nesha. Rig stands and approaches you and places a burlap-wrapped item on the table and opens it. Inside is a leather strap belt that looks like it can be worn around the waist or across the body. It has strapped to the belt small stone pieces with runes etched across the face. There looks to be 6 to 8 across it. And also inside the wrap are additional stone pieces, chisels, and charcoal pieces. And he says to you, Nesha, I understand that you have a knack for the runic arts and utilization. This should be of some help to you along this journey. It will make you formidable and allow you to compete with many of the casters you may encounter. Pay attention to their spells, their scrolls, and their items. If you know where to look, you can always find more runes to add to your collection. And in addition, I give you this from my own finger. And he presents you with a ring. You can add to your inventory, Nesha, in the way that I showed you at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
You can search for an ebon steel ring. This also gives you the capability to utilize your runic arts to cast. You have a +1 bonus to spell attack and spell damage rolls made while wearing this ring. Bram then stands and places a box on the table and opens it. And he removes from it a set of large leather-bound gloves with steel built into the knuckles. The steel glows faintly in the dim light, or perhaps it simply traps the light around it. For you, Brawley, I think these will be a good fit. I call them the Nullstone Knuckles. They are especially effective against those of the Arcane persuasion. You may add to your inventory Nullstone Knuckles. They look like padded gloves with built-in hard knuckles. The knuckles are fused with Nullstone. Nullstone, when shaped into weapons, can weaken arcane barriers and reduce the effectiveness of spells. Some rebels have even discovered ways to use Nullstone to temporarily sever a caster's connection to magic. When worn, these knuckles give the wearer a +2 to damage against an arcane class opponent, and doubles the damage against arcane constructs and arcane barriers like walls that are not around a specific caster. So, for example, it does not affect shield, blur, mage armor, duplicate, etc. But an arcane barrier used as like a perimeter defense, you do double damage. And constructs, which is like automatons and non-biological arcane devices. When activated with a bonus action on your turn by slamming the Nullstone Knuckles together, they hum with an energy and absorb the light immediately around them within an inch. The activation lasts for 10 minutes and then fades. Upon making a successful strike against an arcane class opponent, the knuckles apply stacks. One stack is a -1 to their attack rolls for 1 minute. 2 stacks is a -2 to the arcane user's attack rolls for 1 minute. It refreshes the time of the first attack equal to the total of 1 minute. So each time you land an attack, it refreshes the time to 1 minute. It doesn't stack the minutes. It can only ever max out at 1 minute. And then the third attack, applying 3 stacks, which is the max stacks you can do, gives them disadvantage and -2 to the arcane user's attack rolls for 1 minute. Activating the Nullstone Knuckles can be done once per long rest. He then reaches down beside him and lifts his own hammer. A smithing hammer in size, but the head is larger, and a runic symbol on the side glows with fiery color. And he says, Pyron, you understand the heat of the forge better than most. You know the damage it may cause. I present to you Forge Hammer, the Flame Striker. A more fitting weapon could not be found. Take it with you, and also carry my best wishes. So you can add to your inventory Forge Hammer, the Flame Striker. While holding this Forge Hammer, you can take a bonus action and use a command word to cause flames to engulf the damage-dealing part of the weapon. These flames shed bright light in a 40-foot radius and dim light for an additional 40 feet. While the weapon is ablaze, it deals an extra 1d6 fire damage on a hit. The flames last until you take a bonus action to issue the command again, or until you drop, stow, or sheath the weapon. He then reaches back into the box and pulls out 2 leather satchels and hands one to each of you, Brawley and Pyron. And he says both of you should take the time to be proficient with this. Pyroclast, or sunstone as it is called. Use it to light your forges and fires. It creates heat that can help shape even the toughest of ore, or bring down a bridge. Your choice. So you may add to your inventories a bag of sunstone. He gives you a smile and sits back down.
She'll just pull the bag and the hammer and just kind of subtly nod at him.
Rena. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
How much sunstone is in there, like quantity-wise?
You'll have to discover that at a later time.
Okay.
You're not 100% sure how to work with sunstone yet. So you're not sure. The quantity is the number of uses you would get out of it. So you'll have to experiment with it to discover how many uses you'll get out of it. Rena walks over to Ellis and glances towards the corner where Bonk stands. I know what you two are capable of and how much your skills will be needed over the coming months. For you, Ellis, I gift you with the daggers of Bregor, the blood blades. Keep their memory alive with these blades. So, Ellis, you may add to your inventory blood blades. They give you a +1 bonus to attack rolls and damage rolls made with the magic weapon. And they have an effect called elemental stealing. When you successfully land an attack with this blade against an arcane user and roll an 18 or higher on the dice, the blade absorbs some of that arcane energy from them. So if you roll an 18 or higher, you roll a d4, and the result will determine the arcane damage type that's added to the blades for 1 minute. 1 is fire, 2 is cold, 3 is acid, 4 is necrotic. After absorbing the elemental type, this dagger does an additional 1d6 of the damage type absorbed until it expires, or the blade is sheathed or dropped. And to Bonk, who has worked with me for some time now, I gift you with my quarterstaff and vestment, the ghost vest. So Bonk, you may add a quarterstaff to your inventory, just a regular quarterstaff, but you may also add ghost vest. This vest, when worn, provides a small amount of resistance to arcane spells and effects. Each long rest, you can choose the type of resistance the vest provides: fire, cold, acid, necrotic, and then apply it. Additionally, you gain advantage on saving throws, wisdom saving throws, against spells and magical effects that would restrain or control you. For example, Charmed Person, Tasha's Hideous Laughter, Fast Friends, Command, etc. Spells that trigger a wisdom saving throw that would control your actions. You receive advantage on those saving throws. Garrick walks over to Nyx, and he says to Nyx, "These were found in the remnants of the fire that killed Lady Alyra. They are known as the Void Glass Blades. Alyra would have wanted them to go to someone proficient with them, so I present them to you. So, Nyx, you may add to your inventory Void Glass Blades. You have a +1 bonus to attack and damage rolls made with this magic weapon. Additionally, if you are targeted by a spell that successfully rolls to hit you once per turn, you choose one option as a reaction. The options are deflect. The second option is redirect. The third and final option is return." Anyone else want to say anything back to their sponsor?
I don't think Nisha would say anything, but she'd probably look at Ellis a little uncomfortably because she never told him about her runic casting, and then she'd probably look around at everyone else at the table because she knows how outlawed like magic is, and I think she'd just be kind of tense and uncomfortable.
You would know that in this world there is a vast difference between an arcane user and someone who utilizes runic casting. A runic caster does not have any inherent arcane weave connection. They are simply utilizing a magic item, just like a ring or a vest or a weapon. The rune is the magic. So by touching it, it activates that magic, and they're able to control the reaction that comes from that. So it would be known to y'all that she's not arcane. However, it does not lessen the uncomfortable feeling that Nesha probably has in this moment, because it is still a form of magic, and one that she's had to hide, most likely in the past. So,
Yes.
Raleigh?
Oh, Brennan. Appreciate the stuff. First is first. I'm assuming you want all of us to figure out how we're going to go about this rebellion. Sorts.
My friend, we don't assume that you'll plan the rebellion. We are planning the rebellion. We assume that we will be able to utilize y'all's skills to help us take the steps necessary to start this revolution. So don't feel the pressure of all the decision making on your shoulders at this point. We are going.
I was thinking all the thoughts come from you know who, not me.
Well, we do hope to utilize as much as possible, all of the mind and all of the strength.
But you know, the free folk, they're scattered everywhere. All throughout the lands.
We do, but we do also know that there is a heavy concentration of them to the north in the Forgotten Lands. And if I'm not mistaken, that is where your experience lies.
Word to mouth takes for a minute. If the rest of the party would agree, I feel like that's probably where we start. Because then,
Well,
bigger company, more things can happen throughout the land. Get the eyes off of us.
true. What I will tell you is this. In addition to the items that we've presented to you, you will have your pick from the armory for the rest that you may need. Supplies to travel, ranged weapons, things of that nature. We will be sure that you get what you need to prepare for any endeavor you might take. At this juncture, what we will do is we will leave you in this room as a group to discuss your next steps and what it is that you will embark on first. We will wait simply above in the tavern for word that you have reached a decision. Once your group has decided on your first or best course of action, then you will share that with us.
Well then. Again, appreciate the gloves. And if you ever need any more violins, I got you.
You will be our first stop. Make an insight check. Make an insight check. Four. Yeah, these might be the best violins he's ever seen, and he almost seems excited to get more from you. Is there anyone else who wants to address their sponsor before we step away, before they step away to let you make your decision?
I'll thank Mom.
Okay.
Thank Mom. Thanks, Mom.
Of course, my dear, of course. Well then, with that in mind, we leave you to make your decision and discuss and become acquainted with each other as you see fit. We will simply be above. Just give a shout whenever you reach a decision. And the four of them begin to stand from the table and move away. And as the door to the upper stairwell closes behind them, you are left alone in the subterranean chamber. The map of Kemet'Het still lies before you, candlelight dancing across its worn surface, roots etched in charcoal, circles drawn in red ink, and you can still smell the forge oil from Bram's gear, possibly coming from Brawley and Pyron as well. And Rena's tobacco bite lingers like a ghost. You've been asked to choose the first thread of rebellion. Druids of Thaltorin, the free folk of the north, sabotage and disruption were arrayed on the eastern mines. The future burns in the space between your choices. This is your time as a group to become acquainted or to discuss the next steps at hand from those options. So as we sit around this table with a palpable awkward silence,
I scoop this big mug around as I face the others. Well, and do I notice the awkwardness of the rest of the team?
Make a perception check.
Nat 20.
Nat 20? Yeah.
Let's go.
It is. You could reach out and grab the tension in the air. It's so thick. There is shady looks going back and forth between this tiefling and drow and this other sort of, I don't want to sound mean, but kind of sickly looking in your experience and your history, kind of sickly looking other person. And then a hint of confusion coming from the red-headed dwarf that sits sort of stroking a 5 o'clock shadow, or no, you said it's a short beard.
Yeah, it's a short beard.
Yeah.
Well maintained beard.
Well maintained. Yeah. Nicely groomed beard. There is tension and confusion filling this room.
First things first, we need to hash out whatever this is. Because if there's tension in between the party, it's not going to go anywhere. You can ask that of that one over there in the corner. You dwarf, what do you use in your beard? Because I have to know.
I get a salve from the local market. I don't even know the person that sells it, to be honest. Soap? Just use soap.
It doesn't need anything. It comes naturally.
Use soap.
Make a
Is
history
that what
check.
you use for a shower?
Yeah,
Me?
Brawley,
Or-
make a history check.
Oh, this is sad.
Yes, I know.
Natural one.
Never heard of it. Soap? What's that? You literally
Almost
it was mentioned in your intro. In your house, you had a dirty bowl of water where you washed your hands, and at your forge, you dipped the weapons in dirty water. That's what you're used to.
So, what soap?
Are you being for real right now?
So Nyx kind of like leans over and looks at him like, really?
Well,
So I'll just be like, you know what? We'll cross that bridge when we get there, I guess.
so, you two. Three. What's the problem?
It's nothing. Nothing that we all need to sort out here.
We're going to be going through this rebellion together. We might as well sort it out now.
There is no we in sorting it out. The three of us will sort it out. Well, two. And she kind of like looks Nesha up and down and kind of like grimaces a little bit. The two of us will figure it out.
Heck
There
yeah.
is no we in this.
Pyron sips her mug of ale.
Ellis
Well,
just
then-
looks away and lets her have at it.
Fuck Ellis.
Add this to the notes. There is all caps drama.
Nesha's gonna like lean back and cross her arms and just kind of mean mug Nyx because she doesn't understand why she's being scrutinized right now.
I look at the dwarf. I'm like, should we place bets? Let's make a ring down here.
Pyron's gonna look at Nessa and just kind of like look her up down and like, I can obviously see that she looks kind of sickly, right? Like it's very obvious.
Yes, it is.
And I'm just gonna go, I don't think we need to bet.
Tell me this. You never
Just kind
know
of like
what's behind the
smirks a little.
True.
We'll just put that under the table then.
Ellis is gonna pat Nesha on the back and then
It's
as she's having her coughing fit, and ask if she's okay.
I'm fine. Don't touch me.
Ooh.
She's mad at him.
Ooh.
He's gonna put his hands up in the air immediately and go, whoa, what did I even do? This man don't know what soap is.
I don't know. Why don't you ask the one that's mean mugging me from across the table?
He pauses and then turns away.
Hell hath no fury.
Nesha's gonna look at him and be like, I never knew you to be a coward.
Oh,
Roll for initiative. No, I'm just kidding.
that vicious mockery I hear.
Surprise, we actually have combat.
Surprise, it's us.
Psychic
Damn.
damage.
This
Psychic
dissolved to
damage.
PvP real quick.
Ellis turns back to her, gets up very abruptly, and says, "You know what?" Grabs Nyx, grabs Nesha, and pulls them away from the table to a more like secluded area, and says, "We're hashing this out now. I'm done."
Are you gonna stroke Kieran's beard while we're busy?
Yeah, I'll just.
I might.
That's nicely
consent,
first.
please. Yeah, consent, please.
Yeah.
Could you imagine a big Goliath on the door?
Just-
Like,
I need like one finger.
Okay, so we've got 3 that are splitting off to handle a situation, and we have 2 sitting at a table and 1 lurking in the shadows. Austin, did you get my message? Can you roll a perception check for me?
10.
10? Okay.
Yeah.
There's like a late night evening rush that's happening upstairs in the tavern, and so you're just picking up on, like, being alert and aware of what's going on. You're picking up on the comings and goings. There's an increase in the number of people that have come into the tavern upstairs, so the volume level's starting to rise. Music's getting louder. People are laughing. Drinks are being dropped. Blah blah blah. So it's getting a little more busy upstairs, possibly due to the re-entry of the 4 leaders. People are excited, buying them drinks, whispering, or talking about their plans, etc. But there's a noticeable uptick in the joy level upstairs that you're picking up on.
I'm gonna get up. I'm gonna walk over and stand behind Brawley.
Okay.
And I'm gonna bend over and whisper in his ear, "We need to move this along." And then I'm gonna go sit back down.
So the 3 of you, we'll start with the 3 of you that are still around the table. Is there anything else to be discussed between Bonk, Brawley, and Pyron at this point? And then we're gonna jump to the drama. Oh, I'm hungry.
what do you think about talking with the free folk? Me and my friend over there know the free folk very well.
Well, I like what you said about allies, because we're definitely not going to get anything done with just the 6 of us. So, I'd be interested in
But-
that.
Also, more mouths means information can leak easier.
True.
So that
People
is
talk.
one issue we have to run into.
Yeah.
But more allies, the better. But not too many allies. We have to nitpick our way through.
So what's up with this guy? And she's going to point it at Bonk.
And I look at Blanc and try to get reassurance to see if we're going to let this party know that what we are, or if we need to keep it a secret even longer, since they're part of the rebellion now, and we're all part of the rebellion.
I'm gonna shake my head no.
All right, well, yeah, let's just say he's my friend in low places, and
Okay.
he likes to keep his identity a secret.
Low profile. Got it.
Right.
So the
Sounds
discussion
good.
is going on about the potential to move north toward the free folk or branch out from there. As that discussion is happening, we're going to cut across the room a decent ways away, as it is a fairly large room. Not too large, but, if they start talking in a normal voice, things would be heard. But we jump over to the 3 that have separated. So, Ellis, Nyx, Nesha, you are now standing on the other side of the room in hushed tones or shouting at each other, your choice. But you are now, the 3 of you, isolated to yourselves. How does that make you feel? I'm going to go full Dr. Phil here. Let's do it.
How are you doing, Jerry Springer?
Yeah. It might turn into that real quickly. We'll see.
So I was gonna say, because Ellis grabbed the 2 of them and pulled them away so that we could figure out what the hell was going on. Nyx just kind of keeps she doesn't pull her armor away, but she keeps just staring. I'm assuming, and Suki say otherwise. He just kind of like grabs her like on the forearm or something, just like with his hand grabs her and starts pulling her away, kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. She just kind of like keeps like looking at it, like if she looks away, it's just gonna disappear, and like he's gonna disappear too. And by the time they are separate, like they're across the room, Nesha is just like non-existent to her at this point. She's just not paying attention to her, and she just immediately kind of like grabs Ellis's face and just like looks at him, like turning his face around, like inspecting him for injuries, looking all around him. And she just kind of keeps like whispering and keeps getting a little bit louder every time she says it, saying, "You're alive. How are you alive?"
Callie, did you want to go first with Nesha, or?
Oh, sure. Nesha's gonna like. He's like dragging them away, and he has a pretty tight grip on her wrist, so she's gonna rip it out of his hands and start like rubbing her wrist, and just kind of like she whispers ouch to herself. But when she looks up to like yell at Ellis, Nyx is already like grabbing his face and talking to him, so she just kind of steps away to the side, rubbing her wrist in pain.
Once Nyx grabs Ella's face, he immediately grabs a hold of her shoulders and is silent for a moment as she's whispering to him, and then realization hits him and he whispers to her, but his voice is a little high-pitched as if he's trying to control his emotions. He's like, "Am I alive? How are you alive?"
Weren't you in the... I was the only one to get out. How were you not there? How you don't look like you have a single thing on, like no injuries, no burns, nothing. How did you get out?
Ellis pauses for a moment, takes a deep breath, and then proceeds to whisper, "I wasn't at the house. I was told nobody made it out when I came back."
And she kind of has like a heavy weight, like feel like it's pulling down on her chest and like her shoulders and stuff. And her hands like fall a little bit, and she's just like realizing that, you know, had she not been saved and everything, had pulled away from the rubble and everything, they might have found each other, and it was just a pure, you know, that kind of thing. Sorry. And she just so many thoughts running like through her head and everything. And then she remembers there's a third person there. And all of a sudden she just kind of puts like opens like her with her left hand or whatever, she kind of like puts it on the side of Elsa's face and like pushes him aside and looks at Nesha and goes, "Who the fuck are you?"
Oh.
I think Nesha's gonna look at Ellis because she's really confused and like silently asking for some kind of explanation as to what's going on right now.
Ellis widens his eyes and goes, whoa, I just found you. After having thought I lost you, now I'm getting pushed to the side for that? All right.
No, go ahead.
It's clear he's trying to use his sarcasm to mask all of his emotions at the moment.
And so Nyx's eyes just kind of like snap back to him, and now all of that like attitude and anger she had is directed at him again. And she's like, "No, you were cold. We went from being inseparable, and then all of a sudden you want to be cold, and you won't even look at me when we walked by each other. And then you disappear, and now you've got this." And she kind of like pauses and refrains from using any kind of insult on her.
Say
and
it.
She's like, she's like, "Got this
Now say it.
one with the..."
Who?
Sorry.
At this point, Brawley's
Yeah.
grabbing like what is like popcorn and watching.
Yeah, Pyron's just like, "This ain't good."
It's, so she's like dive with this, and she kind of pauses, and then she looks at her and looks back at him and goes, "Is this why you wouldn't talk to me anymore?"
Ellis gets quiet, but then steps between Nesha and Nyx, kind of like to guard Nesha, and says, whoa, calm down. This is just Nesha. She's a good friend, and I've known her since I was a kid, okay? Listen, she...
Since you were a kid? How long have you two... Why have I never heard about her? I've known you longer than her. What did you two... What?
He tells her to take a breath, and he says, listen, she needed help, and I didn't want you involved or anyone else. And after the fire, she still needed me, and where was I supposed to go? I thought you were gone. She's really nice once you get to know her. Why are you so hostile against her?
Frankly, I don't think I can trust someone. You've decided to keep a secret from me for years now. What other secrets have you kept? Where were you when it happened? Why weren't you home?
Ooh. Nyx. It's me. Why are you acting like I'm a stranger?
Because that's how you acted for months before we got separated. How else am I supposed to think of you?
Ellis kind of downcasts his gaze and turns away, getting quiet for a few moments, not knowing how to address her or say why he had been so cold all those weeks before the fire had broken out.
Nisha's gonna have like a coughing fit, and kind of like hunch over, coughing until she can like, sorry, real coughing fit.
Like, this is real, or?
I know.
Immersion.
I am slightly sick right now, so it kind of works out. She's going to like kind of bend over and put her hands on her knees, and then lift one hand up and kind of like point at Nyx and say, "For the record, he kept you a secret from me as well."
Not y'all making Ellis out to be like this player. That's crazy. That's crazy work.
I was gonna say.
I mean,
It's so crazy that we're going to start the session with two of you pining over Ellis and end the session with Ellis being just utterly alone
Maybe.
and the bad guy.
Ellis and Jarrell become best friends.
oh no.
No.
He's gonna be like, Jabral, I misjudged you.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Ellis is gonna immediately reach to grab Nesha to keep her steady as she's having a coughing fit and say, "Don't push me away this time. I know you're unstable right now."
Nesha's gonna begrudgingly let him like steady her, and she's gonna like kind of look at Nyx and try to like gauge her as a person.
Make an insight check.
Okay. 19.
19.
Oh,
19. I have a +7 for insight.
Nyx.
Damn.
Who are you as a person? Truthful. Like, you don't have to give away the farm, but you know what I mean? Like, what is the sense she would get from you in this moment as far as like who you are, what your feelings towards Ellis are, and what your feelings towards Nesha are in this, not, you know, kind of realization of everything that's happened? Because she's going to see right through. I mean, you can attempt to roll a deception check, but you'd have to beat a 19.
I mean, hold on.
If you want to come off strong or come off, you know, like you don't care or something like that, you could attempt to try to beat a 19 with a deception check.
Now let's go with drama.
Okay. So, what does she get from Nyx then?
She's a lot of conflicting emotions, relief, disbelief, a lot of anger, maybe a little bit of betrayal, and there's definitely a lingering sense that there was a very strong bond between the two of them that Nyx very much still believes is at that strength. Like, she was very, very close with Ellis, and he was like her anchor to like life, I guess. Go ahead.
So that feeling, that intuitive sort of sense of what you get about Nyx with that for Nesha? What does that impact? What is that?
I think she's gonna see the, like, would you say there's longing there?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay, she's gonna see the, like, longing in Nyx's eyes, and I think she's gonna see a bit of herself in the way she feels about Ellis, in the way Nyx feels about Ellis, because she's been so close with Ellis, especially in the last week or so. Sorry. And so I think she's gonna look between Ellis and Nyx and see that there's something really deep there, connection wise, and maybe she feels a bit guilty because, like, I wouldn't say she feels like the other woman right now, but she's very confused and almost a little hurt, and she dealt with a major betrayal in her past. So she's fearful of being betrayed again by Ellis right now. And so I think she would look at Nyx and kind of just, like, take a deep breath. And she'd probably say something like, I just want to say Ellis is just my friend. He saved my life and I would not be here if it weren't for him. And I don't think you should hold that against him.
Damn. Friend zoned like that?
Well, he said it first, okay? He told her she was just a friend. Because I feel like Nesha.
That's true. He did say it first, didn't he?
Whoa.
He did. He friend zoned her first. I feel like she's probably feeling a little, like, brokenhearted, but she's not gonna let that show. I don't know if anyone's gonna look for that, but she's gonna try to hide it as hard as she can.
Kyron's looking.
Inside check.
Oh,
Oh.
Ellis.
What's my
they were
insight?
Friends first.
Whoa,
I got an 11.
my man's getting criminalized.
I really am. I don't know if you can see that. I got some notes.
Oh, damn.
Oh god.
Oh no.
With an 11, it's not 100% clear. You're picking up on the fact that Nesha is definitely going along with what's being said first by Ellis, that they're friends. You're not catching all of the conversation because they are separated away and they're, but you're catching moods and gestures and things that are happening because you can clearly see across the room, like grabbing of faces and shoulders and then, like, pushing away, and it's like a weird pantomime of, like, every
little
movie,
bit of realization. And
every
then be
movie
like,
representation of, like, a conflicted relationship that you could imagine. It's the hold me, don't touch me, back and forth. There's a sense there of something more. Like, you can see the body language out of Nesha of being, like, in agreement, but there's a part of her that almost seems to not be confident in what she's saying. Does that make sense, Byron?
yes.
Like, she's saying it, and you can clearly say she's saying it and, like, nodding along in agreement, but the posture and the body language says, like, I'm just trying to smooth things over. I'm not.
Yeah.
She doesn't fully believe maybe what she's saying. Okay.
Do you
so
think they need a cold shower?
Ellis is
Oh yeah.
the bad
Is there any buckets
guy.
down here?
Whoa. Because I got a 10. That's crazy.
I think after she says that,
Buckets.
I think Nesha would say something like, I owe my life. Oh. I think she would meet Ellis's gaze, but still be speaking to Nyx and say, I owe my life to him. But then I think she'd pull away and kind of, that's when she decides to close herself off.
Nyx kind of, like, watches her, like, little coughing fit, and, like, there's a little, like, twinge of her, like a little knock in her head that's just like, oh fuck, I am kind of being a bitch right now. And so she kind of backs off a little bit, and she's her face, her expression is definitely not eased a bit. She's definitely still got all those emotions just constantly like rushing through her. But she just kind of like does a little like dip of her head, like once, like a little nod, and then turns back to Ellis and it's like, she goes, "For 2 weeks, I thought you were dead. And I thought I was alone.
Hey!
You in a minute, pirate. In a minute." She just like turns back and puts up a finger. It's like, "Hold on."
Plot twist. Nyx is the bad guy.
Shit. And so she just kind of like, puts her like covers her face with her hands and just like rubs her temples a little bit, and it's just like, "You know what, Ellis, I'm glad you're alive, but now is not the time to figure this out. We have other things to do. Can we just go back to the table and we can talk about this later?"
Ellis is going to have a series of emotions cross over his features as Nyx is talking to him. And then as he finally sees her with her hands on her temple, he's going to take both of her hands into his own and just pull her in for a hug. And as he does that, then he's finally able to talk freely without trying to remind himself that she's still there. And so he goes in and he says, he's kind of whispering to her at this point, so it's hard to make out for everyone else in the party, and even certain points for Nesha, because at some words he's whispering more so than others. But he goes in and he says, "Nyx, I'm sorting this out now, and I thought you were gone. I thought everyone was gone. And I know I wasn't the best to you before that, but the lady," and he puts emphasis on her name, knowing that Nyx would know what he means when he says that. "She knew how I felt, and she gave me a choice, but in this game, it's never a choice. It was a warning, and I regret what I did, but I felt I had to do it in order to keep you safe. And I'm sorry I wasn't there. I regretted it every single day. And I'm here now. And I'm glad you are too."
When he like grabs her hands and like pulls her into a hug, she kind of like freezes for a moment and then just immediately like latches on and like squeezes really hard. Like if she lets go, he's not going to be in front of her anymore. And just kind of like kind of just like her eyes like start tearing up as she's like listening to all this, and just she doesn't have much of a reaction and is still kind of trying to stick true to like, they are here for a reason, they have business that needs tending to, and these things can't wait. And a bit hesitantly, she finally like lets go, kind of like cups his face one more time with her hands, and then lets go and just walks back to the table, kind of sniffling a little.
By this time, Brawley definitely refilled his drink.
I'm so happy
Byron
for you,
too.
Brawley.
And she probably got some chicken or something and was watching.
Yeah.
Thank you for this. Thank you for watching this episode of Days of Our Lives. Tune in next week for the next installment.
As Nyx walks away, Ellis kind of looks like a sad kick dog. But he quickly turns to Nesha and whispers to her as well and says, "I'm sorry. That's a part of my life I always tried to keep away from you because of how much danger was involved. And it looks like the past caught up to me. And he just looks down again like a sad, wet dog and doesn't really know what else to say.
I think Nesha's gonna like kind of hug herself because she doesn't want to reach out for Ellis. And
Cold. Ooh.
She's going to kind of like maybe be a little teary-eyed because like it's just a lot going on and she's still fighting that sense of betrayal. And she's gonna say, it's okay. I never asked about your life, but maybe you can share some with me after all of this passes.
Ellis just gives her a sad nod and pats her on the shoulder and ushers to the table and is like, that sounds good. We should probably head back.
Returning to the table, now as a group, a discussion was being had previously between the three that were still currently at the table, which y'all are now returning to the tail ends of this discussion of options. Trying to continue this sort of discussion and small talk as they reapproach the table. The three of you, Bonk, Brawley, and Pyron, are trying to make it the least awkward reintroduction of these three back to the table as possible.
I'm not going to make it the least awkward.
Oh, okay.
Not even the slightest.
All right. So as they return, and you've been having this discussion, aka watching everything that was happening, not getting the gist of it, not getting the main meat and potatoes, but definitely getting a feel and a sense that there is some sort of resolution to what was a sense of drama, a sense of tension before. It feels like maybe it's at least for the time being a little bit smoothed over. What is y'all's?
So, are we all happy as a goat in the pasture?
Ellis looks up at him and goes, my man, we are. And just nods his head.
Good then. Let's talk business.
So before you have a number of options. The Druids of Daltoran, the Free Folk of the North, operating within the city, doing sabotage and disruption, or a raid on the eastern mines. All of these were noted as steps that need to be taken. However, the decision has been left up to you as a group to decide which step you take first. So this is the discussion at hand.
So, us three have been voting that we need more allies. Because if you count the leaders, let's just say 10, the 10 of us can't do much. But with allies all across the country, we can make hits all over. So what do you three think?
I agree. Allies would be beneficial.
Ellis nods and thinks for a moment, and he goes, allies? I think so. I may have a few contacts myself.
Nesha's gonna like sit there quietly and just think about if she's even gonna be able to handle any type of journey, but she's not gonna say anything about it. She's just gonna kind of be like maybe picking at her fingers, just kind of worried, clearly nervous.
Well, little one, you're worried about your rune casting. No one gives a flying hoot. You're not a full arcane. You're not one of the nobles. You're not one of the arcane enforcers. If anything, you're all right in my book. But if I run into an arcane enforcer, I tell you what, I want to rip that man's throat out.
It's not my runes that I'm worried about. I just don't know if my body can handle any type of journey to search for allies.
Then either we get a horse or
Bonk.
How tall is she?
Bonk and Brawley make history checks. And to answer your question, Nesha, how tall are you?
She's 5'2".
She's itty bitty.
She's average for a drow.
I'm gonna pipe up from the back, and I'm gonna say, I think I have a box she could fit in.
She's Nezuko now.
Alice
no.
looks at Bonk and goes, "We're not putting her in a box."
You can put her in a box.
Oh no!
And we're back.
Well, we can
What'd y'all get on the
get a
history
horse.
checks?
I got 3.
Shit. Bonk.
I think mine was 13.
13.
Yeah, 13.
During your time, you can remember there were instances of people coming down with extreme illnesses and sicknesses, and the free folk had an alliance with the druids, and they would send word and healers would come. And many times in those situations you saw people that were worse off than what you're seeing Nesha in right now, like condition wise, and they would make, if not full, then pretty close to full recoveries. There are resources at disposal of the druids and the free folk that don't exist here in the city. Resources that could help someone who is concerned about their physical well-being. For you, Bonk, that memory is solidified. For you, Brawley, she's small.
She's small.
Yeah.
Well,
We could carry you.
I could always carry you. You're like a little child to me. If need be. If you feel weak on the day, I could carry you.
I mean,
I don't.
it's true. Goliath babies are almost 5 foot when they're born, so
Oh my god.
Like giraffes.
they're huge.
Can I see if Nesha knows how big a Goliath baby is?
Absolutely. You may make a history check or a nature check. Your choice.
Gonna go with history. And I rolled a 20, dirty 20.
Dirty 20. You have made some concoctions and some things to help out some people that are going through pregnancy here in the lower wards throughout your history with doing this kind of stuff. And you've tended to quite a few, I'll say probably a solid 5 or 6 Goliath women who were going through pregnancy, and even been present at 1 or 2. And you do remember that at these pregnancies, or when you would show up soon after the baby was born, we're talking within days, that these babies were a solid 3.5, 4 feet in size.
Okay.
Within days.
Nesha's gonna kind of
None of those babies are mine.
Nesha's gonna kind of like.
No, just kidding.
Oh no! Wait, can Goliaths have gray skin?
They all
Yes,
pretty
I
much
have
have
gray
gray
skin.
skin. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. Nesha's gonna cringe because she hates that he's right, and just be like, I don't know. I don't know if I'm comfortable with being carried.
Again, the box idea from Bonk.
She's not
thing.
going in a box.
Maybe we can think about that a little later. I'm getting kind of tired.
It's a comfortable box.
Put some pillows in it.
No.
Bonk, anything you want to throw in there after the box idea is shot down? You want to pitch another idea, like a bag, maybe? Or...
Oh my god.
We could build her a palanquin. Trot her around like a queen.
We
She
could,
fits the bill.
Oh.
we could do that.
That we could do.
Do you remember what Mom used to carry us in? The little carrier.
Yes.
Oh. Please, I don't know if you're referring to the chest wraps or
Swaddle?
no.
Or a swaddle?
I don't know if he's referring to swaddles or car seat. What are they called?
The
Yeah,
stroller?
pram.
Oh, stroller.
Stroller. I don't know if he's referring to a stroller or a swaddle right now.
Swaddle.
I like to think the chest carrier, for sure.
Oh no! Oh my god! I'm just imagining her dangling from his chest like a
Yes.
little.
Now I have an
Oh my
internal
god, a
vision.
baby Bjorn.
that
Oh
is
no.
Nesha strapped to the front of this Goliath who is charging, and she's just throwing runic spells out ahead of him as he's just like running into.
Matrix, get on it.
Yes,
You know I gotta draw that.
We need to draw
You know
it.
what's gonna happen.
Perhaps, perhaps I will accept some assistance from you if it is needed.
Well then, there we have it. We're gonna go see the free folk and the druids.
And when she gets weak, you can carry her. She
Aye.
kind of nods over towards Nesha.
Nesha's not sure if she's being insulted right now, but she's gonna look to Brawley and ask which one they're going to see first.
What do you think, Bronk? The free folk? When's the last time we've seen them?
Been years.
Then yes, that's right. No, I'm trying to look at my notes. See if
I've never been out of the city, really, so I will leave this
I
decision
can't
to you
remember if
guys.
it was in the notes or not.
The discussion that we had was that y'all had returned 3 or 4 years prior to this?
Yeah, I thought
And
so.
long enough to establish yourselves within the lower wards and accomplish what you're here to accomplish, basically, with becoming, with opening the forge, with getting involved with Lady Rena, all of that.
Well then, I mean, we did tell them we would come back and talk to them after we established ourselves here. I guess it's time.
So the two of you would know to pass on this information to the group if you're considering going to visit the free folk. The main focus of the free folk is far to the north, beyond the Valewood, beyond the Maw of Winter, beyond the Shattered Peaks, deep within the Forgotten Lands, the free folk village that would be known as Haven's Rest, which is about as far north as you can get safely. This would be about, optimistically, a week and a half. If you run into any sort of slowdowns or obstacles or have to move slower for any reason, it could take up to 3 weeks.
Aye.
There are stops along the way. There are outposts. There are villages. There are farmland. Once you get past the Valewood, settlements, English is hard, settlements become more scarce. The Valewood and the Valewood and the Maw of Winter that are on either side of the bottom peak of the mountain ranges are sort of the last edges of civilization that's centered around Iphren-Ka and thrives off of the city. So once you get into the Valewood or pass through the Maw of Winter and start going north, it's imperative that you take enough supplies with you.
Well, I suggest we take a few days, get our rations together, get everything packed. I'm ready to go. I'm gonna need at least 1 day to build something. That might help the trip. For the forge.
Build. What do you have in mind? Or is it a surprise?
A cart of
A cart?
sorts.
Oh, that makes sense.
There's
And
a dull sort of reverberating thud that seems to echo from above, like a slammed door. Maybe not, but as it does, a little bit of dust seems to flitter and filter down from the root web ceiling above you.
oh, we should go check on him, huh? I'm pretty sure Bram's overzealous for wine. Probably got to him.
Could be.
So does the group feel that they have a decision on the direction that they are heading?
Mhm.
North
We
toward
decided
the free
the-
folk?
Free folk? Okay.
So the
Yep.
instructions from the leaders of the resistance, the leaders of the revolution, were that once you came to a decision, someone should inform them that you have come to a decision, at which point they will return to the room and discuss the way forward regarding that. So, who, if anyone, wants to pop their head upstairs and let them know that you've come to a decision?
I think I will.
So, making your way...
Unless Bonk wants to do it.
He's edgelording in the corner.
Edgelord.
I love this character already.
I
want
wish-
that to be known.
Austin, I
My
want
character? You love my character already?
Yes.
Nice.
Austin. I want to know if your hair is a little different than mine, like emo style.
Like the bangs.
Like
No, because above table, I'm not doing this because I'm like emotional or anything like that, or I have any like defects or
yeah.
anything.
no, just cool guy like Sasuke.
This is
Yeah.
just this is
Sasuke.
above table. This is just his normal day to day. This is how he has to function day to day.
How I live.
So Brawley, making your way up the stairs back towards the Coiled Root Tavern that lies at the top. Glancing out the slit in the door, make a perception check for me.
Yay! My perception is not hard. 19.
19. The crowd within the Coiled Root seems to have increased, as Bonk was able to kind of pick up on and hear earlier. People getting off of late shifts, people wrapping up their night. It's probably about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night at this point. And so the late night rush seems to be coming in. People are buying drinks. You can see the 4 individuals you had spoken with earlier are around the bar, and people are buying them drinks. People are celebrating with them, laughing. There's some whispers going on back and forth. But there's noticeably more people within the tavern at this point. And as you look around and ensure that there's nothing that would pose an issue with you opening the door at this point and run the risk of you being noticed by someone you shouldn't, you're able to kind of press open the door and quickly catch the attention of Rena, who has been sort of constantly checking in to see if you all have emerged yet. Catching Rena's attention, you're able to sort of wave and let her know that y'all are ready, and she gets the attention of the other 3, who begin wrapping up their conversations, and you can see that they're getting ready to make their way back down the stairs. You're able to head back down, successfully getting their attention, and rejoin the group as you await for them to return. Being informed that you have reached a decision, the 4 leaders then return to the room in order to hear what your plan is. They wait patiently, now seated around the table, for you to lay out the details of what it is that you plan to do, and then decide how they can best assist and help you in this endeavor. So, who is going to communicate your decision as a group to the 4 leaders?
Ellis can. He can hype up very sarcastic and quick-witted and say, "We're going to see the free folk. Yippee."
We're off to see the wizard.
And I look at Ellis like, really? Just like that.
Yep, just
I
like
like
that.
your enthusiasm. You want a violin?
I'd love one, please.
You gotta
Bram,
ask Rob.
yeah, I was gonna say Bram chimes in and goes, "Those are ours. That's if you feel you need one for the journey, we're more than happy to give you one.
I do.
In fact, we'll give you 9 if you want. Please take 9.
You know what? Sold.
You're gonna take 9?
I'll take all 9.
All right. You can add 9
Where are you
violins to your inventory.
Ellis doesn't have armor. He just straps the violins to himself.
He's just got violins down his arms and stuff. It's like, I need you to make a stealth check for me with disadvantage.
Oh my god.
But you can add to your inventory 9 violins. They may come in handy. You never know.
You know?
I mean, when I get improvised weapon mastery, I could chuck a violin.
Just be smashing folks. Charlie Daniels style. All right. You can see that Riggs has a reaction to you going to visit the free folks. This was something he pushed for from the beginning. And so his reaction is very sort of relaxed and a relief. And you can see he pipes up and he says, "I truly feel that the free folk might give us the greatest advantage in this. They have experience with surviving, but they also have experience with resisting, which is what we are going to be doing. I know that some of you have experience in living with or working with the free folk, and any aid that they can provide. When you get to them, please let them know that the resistance will be ready for them to return, and that together we stand a better chance of taking the city back, and we greatly appreciate any help they can provide. Rena sort of pipes up and looks over towards you, Bonk, and she says, I know that your intention was always to return at some point, be it for a short time or a long time. I can say wholeheartedly that I have dreaded the day that you would leave us and head that way. You're a valuable asset, but my heart is filled with hope knowing that the intention is for you to then return with more help. And if they are any bit as qualified as you are, then I favor our chances.
Probably say I'll do my best to bring you back, warriors, Mom.
And you go with all my hopes and best wishes, my child, and I hope that one day, not too far into the future, we can be reunited. She sort of gives you a nod, and there's a very maternal look on her face when she glances across from Bonk, even over to Ellis, and then around to the rest of you at the room. And you all get the sense that Jarrell has called her mom. Bonk has called her mom. And while she is Rena, the crow, who operates within the underground and the smuggling rings within the city, to those that work with her, she cares very deeply for them, and they all address her as mom. And there's this sense that perhaps she is, without saying it, but simply with her eyes, extending that invitation to the rest of you as well, that from this point forward, because of your dedication and your willingness to participate in this cause, she's like a mother to you. She sees you as her children. And she's very happy in this moment. She seems fulfilled to see new faces added to the flock.
Welcome to the fold.
Garrick leans forward, placing his elbows on the table, again sort of stroking the scar on his jaw, and you can see a heavy amount of contemplation behind his eyes. There's something serious that's rolling around inside of his head, something that he is figuring out how to communicate, the best way to communicate to you. He removes his hand from his chin, and he looks up at each of you and opens his mouth to speak, and as he does, slam. The door at the top of the stairs, this false wall, slams open with a loud bang. And stumbling down the stairs, Jarrell, panting and wide-eyed, comes in. And with panic and fear in his voice, he looks straight at Garrick and says, "They're coming. 4 adjudicators, 8 mage guard, headed straight for the route. No patrols. This is a raid." And a chill rushes into the room, as if the flames and the lanterns shrink in fear. And Jarrell says, "We've got minutes, maybe less. They bypass the outer wards, and this isn't random. They know we're here." Garrick stands up, and he says to you all, "There's no time. You've made your choice? Good. Forget the front door. The armory passage leads to the hollow streets. You'll lose them in the alleys." Rigg tosses a satchel onto the table, and he says, "This is smoke pellets, sigils, a map to the gutter lines. Use what you must, but do not engage the adjudicators." Rena looks to you, Bonk, and to you, Ellis, and says, "Don't look back. They can track fear like scent." Bram moves to a concealed wall behind a series of maps that were pinned to the wall on the back side of this room. And he looks to you all and he says, "We'll burn the root if we have to, but you carry the fire now. Go." And he opens another concealed doorway behind this wall, opening into an armory. Rows of scavenged weapons, crates of ore, and stolen sigils, resistance symbols burned into the crates. You all are ushered into this hidden armory, in the back of the room as the sounds of footsteps and shouting and people screaming begins to pour through the streets above you. You are now in the armory. You have a quick minute to scavenge supplies that you might need for this journey. So I would like each of you to tell me what it is that your character might look for. In this armory, there are weapons, rations, blankets, bedrolls, fire starting kits, all the basic supplies you would find in your equipment if you were to start a normal character. However, you get an action to grab 2 items and a bonus action to grab 1 item. And I am going to put a slight time limit on your decisions because this is meant to simulate a very rushed type of situation. So, in fact, as you start to leave the armory at this point, grabbing your items, Bram runs over to Pyron's bag and Brawley's bag, shoves a couple more water skins into your backpacks that you have on your backs as you're sort of like making your way out, and then tosses over crossbow bolts and like other little menial supplies that can be picked up with one hand. He just grabs a few things and sort of hands them off or stuffs them in people's bags, trying to help y'all get his stuff together as quickly as possible. So you have enough supplies to be able to survive for a while, for sure. Pushing you, Bram continues pushing you towards the back of this armory where there is a tight tunnel between tree roots that seems to extend out and up and then emerges into a refuse chute that spills out into the alley shadows behind the coiled root. In the city above, distant booms, alarms, shimmering magical flares, all manner of sights and signals that tell you that the adjudicators are near. As you emerge into the back alleys of Iphren-Ka's lower wards, smoke now curls above rooftops behind you. The cold root's upper level is alight, sacrificed for your escape. As you make your way through the alley, pausing for a moment to look behind you towards the cold root as the sounds increase and the feeling crosses your skin and your hair stands on end as the static charge rips through the air and the loud crackling sound that follows as the side wall of the tavern blows out, splintering wood and glass, sending pieces of this ancient tree flying across the sky. Reeling from the shock of the explosion and looking through the gaping hole in the side of this tavern in a tree, you can see Rena flashing across the tavern room through the opening, moving with speed and quickness unseen in others. She closes the distance with a mage guard who now is making his way across this tavern, and she strikes true. The mage guard's head drops low, and his body lolls, but for a second, and then drops to the ground. Another figure, larger, with 2 hammers in hand, crosses the room, clashing down with the hammers that bounce off of a magical shield of this mage guard in front of him. As Garrick stumbles back from the blow, he kicks low, taking the mage's knee out from under him. And as he falls, both of Garrick's hammers come together with a mighty blow. Bram leaps from behind the bar and comes down on a mage guard who is rounding on Garrick's back. A crash of his hammer as he knocks the mage guard to the floor. They are making headway. They are resisting this assault, this raid by the mage guard. But they all stop and stare across the room. As walking into sight, you can see Riggs being held with arms behind his back by a large figure with arcane robes that shimmer and dance in the torchlight. All 3 of them look confused and drop their weapons to the ground. As Jarrell walks up beside Riggs, seems to say something to them that you cannot hear, and then turns with a flick of his wrist and walks away as Riggs falls to the floor, out of the adjudicator's grasp. You can hear Rena's scream carry out over the air, followed shortly by Jarrell's voice. as it echoes through to your ears. Find the others. 3 of the adjudicators grapple the 3 leaders and begin leading them away. Magical sirens and sounds echo through the stone canyons. Footsteps thunder. Wards shimmer overhead. And through it all, you run. Into shadow, into the mission. Welcome to the revolution. And that's where we're going to end this session.
What the fuck? Riggs! That was my main man!
We went from drama to people are
I
dying.
really had a bad feeling about the guy that was coming to get all of us.
What
Like,
would have
the
happened
whole
if
time.
Nix had said, "Yeah, let's go on a date"?
I was thinking that, like, what if she said yes?
Maybe all of this would have been avoided.
Ellis, I'm sorry for
Biggest crash
questioning
out.
your beef with Jarrell. I'm sorry.
Certainly,
told
Nix
y'all
is
the
the
ball
bad
is-
guy.
I told y'all. I
Ellis
love
fucking knew.
Yup. And that's why he never called him by his name. He said, "You don't get your name. You get anything I say."